Hey guys, it's me Ximarru or Ximena. After thinking about this for some time, I'm finally deciding to share my OC's lore. I've posted these guys before on my redesigning video and on other platforms, but this is their first official introduction, I guess you could say. The only reason I wasn't sure if I wanted to share their lore was because I couldn't stick with one storyline. I kept changing plot ideas, and overall I wasn't happy with what I had at first. But now I think I can proudly share what I have so far. A small disclaimer before we start, but this video might be all over the place, and that's because I still don't have everything figured out. My characters are still a work in progress and are still in the beginning stages, but I just wanted to get my ideas out there, so I hope you can still get what I'm saying. But other than that, let's get started. To start off, let me give a bit of background information. In this world, there are normies and E-types. Normies are, as the name suggests, normal humans, and E-types are those who develop powers. Even though at one point they both were able to coexist, people started becoming afraid and a bit envious of E-types. Because of this, E-types also retaliated and started thinking that they were better than normies. This caused the government to basically split them up. How? I'm not sure yet. The start of the story is years after the split, and a special academy is created to start the merging process of both normies and E-types. This academy's goal is to show the world and society that both normies and E-types can live and work together. They want to show that there's no need to be afraid of powers and that being normal doesn't necessarily make someone useless. Although many students didn't want to attend this academy, they were promised that if this works out, they would be given all the resources and teachings that any E-type or normie could have. There weren't many requirements, which also made it easier for students to want to attend. Also, a small detail that I want to include about E-types is that once they develop their powers, a small sigil appears on their body representing the kind of ability they have. Think of Fairy Tail and how they have their guild marks. That's basically how it is, but it's unique to every person and the placement of it is random. Now that that's out of the way, we have our main character, Sebastián. Sebastián is an awkward guy who just wants to be normal. Well, as normal as someone with powers can be. At age 5, Sebastián developed a pyrokinetic power, which isn't unusual since 50% of the world has over time developed these unusual abilities. However, even though he has it, his elemental energy is very low. So low in fact that it looks as if he didn't have any power at all. Elemental energy is something you develop along with your power. Depending on how much energy one has also has to do with how strong that power is. So the fact that Sebastián's is so low is pretty shocking. Now usually it's not rare for someone to be born with low elemental energy, since over time with hard work and practice it can increase. However, no matter how much time passes, he can't seem to get the hang of his power, which causes him to get picked on by his classmates. Because of this, he was very closed off and didn't have any friends throughout high school, which is why after graduating, he decides to switch up entirely and try to be more confident. And most importantly, he decides to present himself as a normie. Since he wasn't able to use his powers, he decided to pretend to not have them at all, to at least give him a chance of making friends and not getting picked on. He knows he shouldn't lie, especially since as low as his elemental energy may be, he still has his sigil, which is placed on his arm, so if anyone were to see it, it would basically be a dead giveaway that he is an E-type. And lying is not the best way to start off this new year. But give him a break guys, he just wants a fresh start, and besides, he's never been able to use his powers before, so no one would even find out, right? Well, on his first night at the academy, he goes out for a walk late at night, and as he's walking, he sees someone lurking around. It's dark, so he has no idea who it is. All he can see is that it's an E-type. He's confused as to why they're lurking around so late, and just as he's about to head back inside, he out of nowhere gets hit with a beam of energy. With all the confusion, all he can do is go back inside and sleep it off. And although everything seems to be fine the next morning, he'll soon realize that his elemental energy has just got a giant boost, and now his normal life that he wanted is gonna be a little harder to attain. Guys, I love Sebastián so much. He's so silly, and all he wants is a normal life and friends. Next up is Xaime. Xaime is a kind, silly, outgoing guy who's not afraid to speak up. He likes to have fun and can get along with anyone, as long as they're a good person. He's very carefree and, like I mentioned, isn't afraid to speak his mind, which doesn't always sit well with some of his classmates. But unlike Sebastián, Xaime isn't afraid to talk back, so he gets into quite a bit of fights with those who pick on others or his friends. Xaime is a normie, so all his fights prior to the academy were always fistfights. Once he attends the academy is where he realizes that maybe he can't always solve his problems with his fists, especially when the person he's fighting clearly has the upper hand, aka the use of powers. Xaime decided to attend the academy because in all honesty, it was one of the only schools that would accept him. He never took his studies too seriously, so he just barely managed to graduate high school, and because of the fights he would get into, he didn't have the best reputation. but if anyone were to ask him, he would just say that he's attending out of curiosity. Him and Sebastián are actually roommates, and even though he thinks he made a pretty good first impression, Sebastián doesn't think so. The first time Sebastián saw Xaime, he was actually already getting into fights with some of his old classmates. But in Jaime's defense, they were making fun of him once again, so he decided to defend himself the only way he knows best. Sadly, Sebastián doesn't know that, so he just thinks that his roommate is some kind of delinquent or troublemaker. Of course, after actually getting to know each other, he sees the kind of person Xaime actually is, and he starts looking up to him as his role model. Xaime is everything Sebastián wishes he could be, more confident, outgoing, and not afraid to defend himself. And last but not least, we have Daniela or Dani. I think her design is one of my favorites. She is such a cutie, I love her. She's super into fashion, and unlike Xaime, she's a pretty good student. She tries to stay positive for the most part, but in reality, she can have quite a temper. Dani is a normie and Jaime's older sister. She is a year above him, and they are very close. Although she doesn't approve of some of the things Xaime does, she cares for him a lot and they're each other's best friend. Since she is a year older than him, she was already attending a university for her first year. But once Xaime graduated and the academy was made, she decided to transfer so they could still be together. She knows he can take care of himself, but she's still worried that he'll get into trouble. And besides, it's not like the university she was attending was anything special. And just like Xaime, she was just as curious about the academy and E-types themselves. Many students attending the academy are mostly going for the experience. Almost none of them actually think any change will be made. But Dani, on the other hand, has hope. She's always been curious as to why both groups had to split up in the first place. She believes if everyone tries to get along, that in the future both groups could coexist once again. Dani's always been fascinated by the fact that someone can develop powers, which most people found weird, of course, so she would get picked on when she was younger. She was very shy as a kid, so Xaime usually stepped up to defend her. But now that she's older and more confident in herself, plus the fact that she has a chance to coexist with E-types, she's definitely more open about her curiosity towards them. Also, Dani, Xaime, and Sebastián end up becoming a little trio in the beginning of the story. Dani and Xaime actually find out that Sebastián is an E-type early on in the story, since they accidentally witnessed him using his powers. So they decide to try and help him out and find out what exactly is going on with him and his sudden boost of power. And Dani is actually going to play a big part as to how they end up meeting some other important characters who will also play a big part in this story. I actually do have 3 more OCs I want to show, as well as a bit more lore, but that'll be for another video. I hope you guys enjoyed this one, and I hope it wasn't too confusing. I love them so much, so I hope you guys liked hearing about them as much as I enjoyed talking about them. I can't wait to show the rest of my OCs, which some of you have probably already seen, but I'm gonna go into a bit more detail, so please look forward to it. But other than that, until next time.